Mass ping time. Let's double check that we're streaming. We're live. Alrighty. Hopefully you guys know that that ping is your go signal and we can be on our way. Oh. Alrighty. So we've seen Cino on the feature match before, but Wuhtrain is on some spicy infernoids, which most everyone, including me, thought were like bad because they really struggle for having like not enough name density because of the singleton rules. There's only like 13 of them, and at least 4 are like utter garbo. But you need more because you need names to banish names. That's a name. It's something at least. Torrential's probably the safe pick because Burial is like assuming that you ever actually make it to that late game fantasy of a bunch of Noids banished. And Void Expansion doesn't do very much. It's not a spiral. Oh, Solemned too. Gotta stop that draw. That's interesting. I guess he's banking on the blind top deck call, like not being able to use Misty to check, meaning that if he does have a super agent follow-up, it's gonna whiff. So that might be what Cino's thinking about right now. That was like a shotgun Solemn, though. It's just like super fast. Turn one. Let's see what he foolishes for. I know it's like he's got a lot of the spiral engine, but yeah, he doesn't have the agent set up, so he couldn't foolish. Well, I guess he could if he's just gonna big red, but I mean, agent's not bad. That's pretty rough though. Using a warning like that and immediately getting air quotes blown out by big red. At least it was chainable. So I guess Mr. Train just needs something with over 1200 attack to continue applying the pressure because none of these are the spirals with grave effects. Hey, that looks like a Noid summon. Oh, look at this one. It's so cute. Once per turn, you can target one set card on the field, shuffle it into the deck. So he can shuffle away that super agent if he so desires. That would be pretty good because it would mean that Cino really like hard nagged on the foolish. Wahoo! Ring of Destruction for 0 burn. But the banish effect is only during the opponent's turn, so that means if Wuhtrain is thinking here, he probably has the quick play Infernoid spell that makes them unaffected by card effects. So we might see that make an appearance to guarantee that he can get the super agent shuffle in. Or it's just that. Just a paleo in the grave. Sadly not big enough to beat over the super agent, but may as well take the free body on board. If he has Entra here, that would be pretty spicy because he could go into the Paleo XYZ, but just linking up isn't bad. The Paleos are normal monsters, so that means that he's still only on 2 summons. The normal Ghost Ogre and the special Pyrameus. Going into Serb just for beats. I guess he thought leaving the Phoenix in the extra was better and or didn't have any other generic Link 2s to help. Well, you say you bricked pretty badly, but Cino doesn't really seem to be doing anything, and now you're like still at advantage because you've been trading cards. Or I guess not at advantage, but even. 3-3. Wow, another premature effect. That's pretty rough if this back row isn't anything, because he can just beat back over the Serb. Woo! He's not using the effect. Oh wait, it's not summoned by a spiral effect. Never mind. Oh, that premature is not even that great then. It's like, ooh, 1900 beater. Because he doesn't have like a Helix play follow-up. That would have been the really scary thing if one of the in-hand cards was one of the good spiral monsters, like Quick Fix. Could just pop off, but Super Agent beats aren't that scary because they slowly get blown out by a Sangan search. Just grab Deca. He banished one, but I'm pretty sure he plays two because of the feast. Oh, that works. He has Skarm still as a tour guide target, though Sangan and Curry Bandit are in the grave. Let's see if he plays a Fiendish Rhino Warrior, which I know I am a fan of because of the incidental protection effect being a lot more relevant for Infernoids than it is for BAs. Woo! There's that Torrential. I suppose that I could have known that he had that had I been thinking about it, but the important person to know about that would have been Cino over here to not overextend into that plus. Looks like he is grabbing the Skarm. I'm not sure what he has for targets left in deck, though. He might just be going for Witchling to add back something. That could be better than just going for Dante here, because it's 1900 floater as opposed to kind of 2500 floater and Mills cards, but you're floating into a Skarm, whereas the Witchling can float into Curry Bandit, Sangan, or Tour Guide as well. So let's check on the chat. Having fun over here, everyone. I need someone else to check on my chat. So I don't have to click away from the action. Oh, he's playing Lilith. That's an interesting card. It's pretty good, though. We know he's on at least a handful of normal traps like the Paleos. 1-for-1 is... If this isn't a piece of disruption, which, you know, that could be pretty bad, because Quick Fix into... Well, his big red's gone, so I guess Quick Fix into tough would be about as scary as it gets. Trying to think about what lines Cino has here. Maybe he has the Quick Fix in hand, or tough in hand, and that's why he's going for the drone. But drone also has a useful graveyard effect that's fairly set up by now with 3 spirals and grave. Oh, it was the drone and Quick Fix. He either had already 1-for-1 and I missed it, or had both anyways. But this is looking like a double Helix plus some setup off this drone, which might be rough, so really praying for that disruption, especially because now that both drone and Quick Fix are in the graveyard, that's like this double Helix play and a second wind of being able to use drone's effect to add back Super Agent and then use Quick Fix's effect again. So that's pretty helpful that the back row was live. Ooh, you got a big boy in grave. So that's 2 names though, but I'm getting a message. Sleep less, you fucking degenerate. Don't curse on my stream! I'll ban you! Okay, I cursed there too by reading your quote. I'll call it even for now. So now he's going for the ad with the Super Agent. I'm not sure he had to do that right now, but I guess all the Infernoids have incidental DD Crow effects, so may as well get the value that you're guaranteed. He was at the summon limit, but I'm not sure Mr. Train can pressure with just the Lilith and Witchling. This should be 1500 because of the Witchling boost. And yeah, after its half. Let's see, he can set like a Paleo or Needlebug Nest or whatever he wants. Maybe even a Feast, but Feast can only send from hand or face up from field, so because he set this other card, that's not likely. But I mean, well, it's kind of good, so. we'll see. Sino, like, he has the agent and the quick fix, but his double helix is banished. His big red is banished. He he might not be in too good of a situation here. He has to, like, he still knows the top from the drone, but ooh, that's pretty nice. I'm not sure about returning the paleo there when he already has a paleo engrave, when he could have returned the Decatron and been that much closer to resolving this Onunku. But he also maybe should have chained that one of his paleos just to pressure Sino into attacking over something, or attacking over it instead of something else. Though I'm not sure. I'm not sure what else he has as a follow-up outside of the quick fix. He might just, his play might be to go for like a Nightmare Serb, rip in peace double helix. Yeah, that was another like minor misplay there. He could have Lilithed on the standby phase. Um, yeah, because it's a quick effect, and that would have changed the shuffle, and so the super agent wouldn't have been guaranteed. But too late now, and I don't think Wuhtrain is in too bad of a position because he's like got the Lilith who's got the setup effect and the Witchling who has a float effect, even though he can get the fully armed here. I guess that's a little scary because you can non-targeting banish what the Lilith sets if it sets something. Okay, that is actually kind of scary. Maybe that was a big botch. Though I guess he could have just normal summoned the super agent and made the same play if the call was incorrect. And Wuhtrain would have been forced to just Leoncolia whenever, which is like not a particularly high impact paleo. So Heavy Storm Duster, Lost Wind, and shoot, I missed the other one. Needlebug Nest, yeah. So that's rough because he can now banish the set. And the Witchling float was prevented, so this card's kinda good. Now we'll see if that returning the paleo here really bites him, because if he draws one Infernoid, then he could have summoned an Unku, had he returned the Decatron instead of the paleo. So we'll see. This has been a pretty close game, but that fully armed was out of nowhere. Or I guess searched, but still a pretty hefty swing. It's like you think that they're out of steam, but then they have another equip that dismantles the opponent's board. And now he has Tough too, which also a pretty good card. So 29, 19, and 300. Is that 100? No, that's lethal. That's got to be lethal. So okay, so it looks like the best he can do is jump for a turn with a paleo here, sending like the Lost Wind. I'm not sure what else he can send. So this is still a fairly dire situation. Has to be in attack mode or else that's still game because the Kuriboh could swing over at 0 defense. And it looks like he's just sending the... Or he was just thinking about just sending the lair to stall. But I guess he was like, okay, that's enough. There was not a very good chance of coming out of there, especially with only 2 Infernoid names in the grave, so you couldn't even get that Onunku save. Actually, we've been talking about it some, and Needlebug Nest is kind of good. I mean, it like sucks, but the fact that you can incidentally get more than Mill 5, it like affects your ratios for playing things like uh, King Backjack and Curry Bandit, while also triggering Paleos. Like, it's bad if you're only playing it because it's a slow Mill 5, but I think it's like defensible at least if you're playing it because you can use it to like bridge the gap between the two halves of your deck. If you're playing Paleos, it's useful. It's not great, but it's useful. And then if you're playing Noids, it's also useful. So, and like random milling is good. You could just mill that Scarm sometimes. So now they're on to siding. Looks like Wuhtrain finished fairly fast, which is interesting. I guess he was expecting this matchup and knew what he was siding beforehand. Or maybe he just like had some easy picks, like Prohibition is a fun one because it turns off Super Agent, which turns off Tough and Double Helix, and like Quick Fix's Graveyard Effect, and a whole bunch of other shenanigans. But now they start again. And it looks like Wuhtrain opting to go first because, yeah, you can open a Decatron and start off with some disruption or bait a piece of disruption, I guess, here. That's like annoying, but also not a loss. Yes, exactly, because the Decatron could have forced an Ogre or Ash, which now means that this Vanishment will get that feast, will get that like big saucy setup. So Decatron doing its job here. And this is another reason why playing all of the disparate levels is nice, because playing 2 Decatron means that even if you draw one, you can still feast into the 6 Decatron and then Pyrmaeus the other level 1. So, and also having the Saitsuma set up in Grave, this is probably a pretty hefty start, and another piece of back row. So that's why I wanted to go first there. Curtain Raiser. Okay, so an interesting thing is Devyati's effect, or no wait, it's a Nunku who negates spells and traps. He negates spell and trap effects. So one of the things that Wuhtrain could have done there is like fired off the feast into Decatron, Pyrmaeus, and Sajet, and then sending a Nunku, and then when Sino tried to use the Curtain Raiser's pendulum effect to summon itself, that counts as a spell or trap effect, and he could have sacked the nameless Decatron to banish it. And that might have been pretty good. We'll see if he gets punished by like Exciton Knight or something. Yep, I saw that one coming. He should have fired off the Void Feast sooner, perhaps. Unless he's also got like a piece of effect negation in the back row, which is pretty, that'd be pretty big. But I mean, using Void Feast to send to effectively send like 4 Infernoid names to the grave is not even bad. So yeah, because he can just like summon 3, including a Decatron, and then Decatron's effect, even though it's no longer copying anything, it still resolves. So it'll send from deck to grave his choice. And a face down Exciton Knight isn't exactly the most threatening, so I think that this is still a fairly good situation. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and soon to be 6 names engraved. If Prawn were here, he'd be whining so hard about that feast. It's a good card. This does work the way that Wuhtrain says it does. It doesn't like, at least, let's check. Maybe it does miss timing. Nope, it's an if effect, so. Yes, it is possible. Let's see what everyone else is saying. Aw, thank you. It's truth. I did check the deck, so I have a little bit of an advantage, but also just understanding how the decks play means that you can predict the plays that are good in this situation, and that's like good knowledge to have in general. I don't know why Dueling Book does that. There's a little glitch there. Let's whip on over to Discord because I happen to be a certified judge. Let's go. Ruling questions. Yes, Deca sends. It doesn't miss timing and doesn't need to be face up. And that's an interesting point, Tree. Let's see what Evil Swarm Exciton. Does it mean like all other cards? Okay. Destroy all other cards. I mean, it's still the same card. Oh, hey. He's already got the ruling ready. Alright, well, maybe we'll learn something right here. Still figuring that out. But, yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, the Exciton Knight is not particularly scary anyways, just sitting face down in the EMZ, but hey, take what you can get. That's one of those rulings that, oh, wait, unsure. Let's get some backup. Yeah, I won't say anything here because I am not actually sure on that one. I just knew the Decatron ruling. It's like, even if you Ghost Ogre a Decatron, or I guess you can't because it's on summon, but even if you like Torrential Tribute a Decatron or something, it still sends because the effect has already been activated. And even though it's not face up on the field when the effect started to activate, that's like that's still how it works. That's one of those like goofy rulings where I remember being at a regional once, and one of the things that they did was announce rulings beforehand for like contentious and common stuff, so that the head judge would like just announce it to the whole venue. And one of the things was it was legal to use Mermail Abystus, I think, the level 4 who pitches 1 to add like a water back from grave to hand without like targeting before discarding. So you can pitch one that you can pitch one and then add it back, and you could do this to pitch heavy infantry and then add the same heavy infantry back to get a pop. But the interesting part was you would pitch heavy infantry and add it back, and if your opponent had Soul Drain up, they ruled at the event that the heavy infantry would still activate because it was no longer in the graveyard. I am not sure how correct that is, but yeah, so that was what was ruled at the time. And it looks like they sorted that out, got the Exciton is not destroyed, which didn't sound right to me, but it's good to know. And now there's 6. It's like, Wuhtrain is out of cards, except he also has 6 Noids engraved, so it's like you're playing against Snow all over again. My favorite. Yeah, he can just summon the sites. Oh, and the, whew, That's like aggro. Now he gets like, well, I suppose even though he's using all of his resources here to summon two big dudes, he just saw his opponent use or lose a Torrential and use an Exciton, which are two of the more common board wipe options, which would be the main ways to punish this setup. And this is also a really fast clock because Atondal has the BLS effect to double attack. So this is 26, 28, and then a single Cinosrepus hit will finish him off. So those two cards better be something good. Okay. Thank you, our ruling Meister. Let's see what the chat's going. Maybe you should eat more Pringles instead of fattening potatoes. This is a good take. He's thinking about the Thousand Blades, but technically he could have. Wuhtrain could choose to banish it, but like holding on to like activating the Thousand Blades that long is like kind of scurry. Though I suppose a way to play around the Thousand Blades activation would be to, if he doesn't activate it here, to not attack with the Cinosrepus, and then next turn attack with the Cinosrepus first, and then if he summons the Thousand Blades, the Atondal will get its double attack to still push through game-winning damage. But that would presume that Sino didn't have any other play. So I guess he was just thinking of using it to try and take a little bit less life point damage here. Because of that line, to play around its chump blocking capabilities. Let's see what he drew. Anything to get him out of this dire situation. Viewing the extra deck. Ooh, that's always a sign that they're thinking about something. Though, I mean, just, that's another one of those things. I was talking about it earlier. Viewing the extra deck in graveyard, like when you're thinking idly, helps make sure that you don't forget about something like this Thousand Blades right here. That is a good card. If he can come back, then Quick Fix is one of the cards that could allow it. Something like Quick Fix, Super Agent call correctly and pop off. He doesn't have any setup in Grave, so no going crazy with the big red. Oh my lord. Is he just going to chump block on this Quick Fix? Or he's going to stall with the Link Karibo and then try and last resort. But not sure that actually works out the way you wish it would, because Cinosrepus is actually non-targeting, non-destruction removal. It's pretty good. Oh, he has big red too. Nice. So he can just summon the Quick Fix and defense and like stall. Get another search if he wants to put the last resort on it. Unless it's like Super Agent specific. I don't actually know the Spiral cards too well. So I might be talking like wrong here. But yeah, he can also just banish that. That's pretty good. The big ones are quick effect DD Crows on either player's turn, and the little ones are quick effect DD Crows only on your opponent's turn. This matters for stuff like getting them off the board to like dodge stuff. It's cute. You can like normal summon a Decatron, use its send effect, and if your opponent like Veilers, you can sack the Decatron with a Cinosrepus to banish a random card, and it'll resolve because it's not on the field anymore. It's fun stuff. But yeah, this is pretty dire because losing that second quick fix search means that Sino might have left himself with a dead last resort in hand. Though, in a sense, trading one of the big Noid dudes that are pressuring game for a play disruption, it's like kind of scary because as is this now he has like 2 more turns to draw cards because the Cinosrepus couldn't kill that fast. And he drew a useful card at least. Useful enough to take a look at the top of Wuhtrain's deck, which actually kind of matters in such a low card situation. Because now it's like his draws for the next 3 turns are probably the only other cards we're going to see this game, unless one of them shuffles the deck or like searches something. So that means stacking the least useful one. Okay, so I was right. It can equip to any spiral, even though a 100 attack mode drone is not exactly the pinnacle of scurriness. However, if this card attacks an opponent's monster, it doesn't need to destroy it or anything. The attack just needs to go through, and it doesn't target, which means this last resort doesn't actually do much to stall because it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects, and it can't be targeted, but this is non-targeting, non-destruction at the end of the battle phase. Like, the same window that Time Lords activate, because, oh, that's interesting. I guess this is a side deck tech that's fairly useful here, just to force through the destruction of drone. And this way he can banish the back row instead and not have to worry about the Spell Shadowing Arrow being kind of dead versus a set card as opposed to a live card. So, yeah. After the attack, because I'm dumb. I mean, technically you're allowed to, like... Well, this is why you call phases anyways. But, yeah, so like being more clear in that situation could have sorted it out. But being like, is attack declaration good? And then flipping the Spell Shadowing Arrow. Because no one said anything. Sino just like took the damage instead of like asking how the stuff would go. But end of battle phase, Cinosrepus effect can hit the unknown or hit the known wow, to like prevent the opponent from top decking a tough or something. It does not target, though on resolution you do get to select. Broken. Yep. Whoa, really? Yeah. Spell Shattering Arrow is like an interesting side, though. I guess it was specifically as an extra field spell out, but it did come in useful for this last resort, which would have been a hard wall if it were any other Infernoid than the non-targeting, non-destroying level 7 that he happened to open. Like the Atondal could have just switched it to defense. Looks like he's... If I were in Wuhtrain's situation, I would be greatly heartened by this turn of events because summoning Linkuriboh here means that Sino's not... I don't think that's the safe gamble. Like, or I think that that's like gambling on stalling out for an extra turn to see one card deeper isn't as likely to win as trying to top deck a spiral monster and going into double helix while you have the face-up drone. So just leaving a Linkuriboh on board is not as scary as the drone. You probably shouldn't listen to the stream while you're playing if you're responding to my comment, because I'll talk like strategy and back row predictions and stuff like that. But yeah, see now this Linkuriboh, it's like, yes, you live for another turn, but the Linkuriboh just goes away, which means that you effectively traded an on-field drone for one extra card in your deck. And considering how you still had a double helix in deck, like considering you still had a double helix in deck, I really feel like the leaving the drone on board was probably better. Though I guess I don't know what this card is, and we'll figure out. Does it? if this card attacks an opponent's monster. Well, yes, it does. But, I mean, it doesn't banish anything. I guess the if this were like some saucy hand trap, what is that? Juraghetto? Ooh, but we'll find out momentarily because this turn is either make a play or scoop for Cino, and looks like Wuhtrain did not need either of these top decks, though I don't suppose they're anything good because they were shuffled by the drone. But then again, I might be speaking too soon. Maybe there's some sick Super Agent Tough play that's about to happen. That'd be pretty good. But nope, just passing. So now all three of these are the shuffled drone cards. So the likelihood that all of them are bad is not the highest. Oh my gosh! It was Juraghetto exactly. The Prophet strikes again. But using it to chump block like that still isn't the path towards a victory, so we'll have to see what this big swing is. I'm fairly certain that all of these are bluffs because he didn't set either two of them beforehand. So it's possible that he drew a live trap and then was like, just in case one of these is an MST, I'll set three. But like two of them were bluffs and like some dead void card probably. But that sealed the deal. The Juraghetto and Linkuriboh stalls were not the path to victory there. They didn't really help against that big beefy dude. All right, I hope that yes, bask in my glory. Yeah, no, actually, I felt bad about that because I was willing to let Prawn commentate, and then he backed out. So had I known that you were interested this time, I would have let you in. But so far, I've been trying to stick it to A, people who aren't in the tournament, or B, admins who I know what they're talking about. But next time, maybe. I think I get it now. Ooh, let's see what he gets. Let's see if he could turn this into a win. Oh, Wuhtrain's so nice. Also, I'm going to continue going back and forth on saying Wuhtrain and Wuhtrain because I still don't know which it is, and I like the sound of both. So, deal with it. I usually just say whichever one I feel like when I'm referring to the players, but that's okay. When I first would read Cino's name, I read it as Cinosrepus with no S. So I always read it in my head as Cinosrepus instead of Cinosrepus or Cinosrepus or however you're supposed to say it. So, yeah, that's why I just call him Cino, because that way I can avoid that mishap. But, yeah, so I have a feeling that one of the cards that he drew that was like shuffled around with the drone that was dead was a Void Feast without a target. At least that's from what he's saying there, and also from the fact that it was like very clearly super dead spell or trap. Cino admitting that he doesn't have the good side deck choices. I can understand a bit more why he took a little bit siding game one. He might not have been prepared for the Infernoid success. Gofu broken. It's interesting to just like fire it off, but I suppose Wuhtrain has something in mind here. Like usually Gofu, like using your turn on the Gofu Linkuriboh Phoenix play is like good enough, but well, yeah, I guess that's a thing. That's pretty neat. You can two dark monsters. So I guess Gofu has a lot more utility going first now, because I didn't think about the possibility of that, because the Wee Witch's Apprentice can float back into the Gofu, and then Linkuriboh uses itself from grave anyway, so you don't care if it's gone. And you can just like sack one of the Babby tokens. Although I suppose it does prevent the co-link nightmare shenanigans, but Anyways, opening Void Vanishment into Void Feast is kind of good. So we'll see what Cino's got. Feast, it's like Vanishment going first is really powerful, and you generally need some sort of disruption for the feast. The problem is you have to play a bunch of bricks to actually like make this work. I I personally am a fan of just firing off the feast in the standby phase because that way you can set up your two negates before your opponent gets priority to normal summon a quick fix, because quick fix gets a search and it has a graveyard effect. So if I were Wuhtrain, I would have highly prioritized getting out that Deviati down because it negates and banishes. So banishing that quick fix stops the search, keeps it out of the graveyard, and really hurts the longevity of the Spiral engine. So, also, Rip Card Trooper. I wonder what his other cards are if he were to toss the Card Trooper, who's like a fine card. He didn't use his normal summon, so he could have set it and it floats. And at some point, just using it to mill 3 is pretty good when you have like a bunch of graveyard-based Noids in your deck. So I guess because he pitched the Trooper, I'm going to think that one of these pieces of back row is useful, and it's possible that because he didn't flip the Feast, one of these, this is one of his Feast targets that he would have liked in deck, either one of his Decatrons or Anunku or Deviati. So we'll see if I can't do it again. I swear neither are mirror forces. That's some nice incidental synergy with Link Kuriboh. One of Decatron like Decatron copying Anunku or Deviati's weaknesses is the fact that it's 200 defense and fairly easy to just hit over. Link Kuriboh can negate one attack, which means that you can like actually make sure that you get value out of the negate. That's another reason why I like to fire it off before the opponent normal summons, because usually like you want to use the negate earlier than later, like especially in Trinity where the opponent, oh, I called that one. It's such a live back row. Doesn't even get the float effect because it wasn't synchro summoned successfully. So that's a big rip. But I guess Big Red is kind of good there, and he's still on one summon because Theseus is a normal monster. But yeah, so this is sort of scary though. If Sino doesn't have any defense, one of the things that Infernoids can do from here is instead of just going into like Sajet double Decatron, you can go into like Harmadic Petrulia Decatron and like push for damage, and you can you can make somewhere in here there is the little chimera, the fire version of Witchling, which you can use to give all your Infernoids a boost while putting the names in graves, so you can fire off the Anunku or whatever that you just sent, which really helps, especially because he already has this semi-established board, and leaving up, like, if the opponent doesn't set any back row, leaving up a Decatron copying Deviati, or just a Deviati, is like, no Juragetto can save you from that. It looks like Sino's not done with his plays. I'm thinking he'll try and Foolish Super Agent maybe, and then Big Red. I'm not sure how useful that is at this point, because we know that, well, we effectively know that this is the Vanishment and the Feast, and Feast sends its cost, so it can't be disrupted by an MST effect like that. We'll see, though. Maybe he's just doing the tried and true look at your deck and hope that you can figure out a plan now that you're looking at more cards, because I do that a fair amount of the time. Looks like he sent Tough instead. That's fairly risky. He doesn't have a guaranteed setup for like the top card, which means he's probably just blind calling it to kill the Witchling or something just to try and not die, which is like rough. That is a scary use of resources. He's just popping the Link Kuriboh. That's kind of interesting. did call it right. Actually, so this is not once per turn, and stays in the graveyard. So that doesn't line up as cleanly as would have liked. Oof. Okay, so that's kind of rough. Yeah, now this tough is like super fat, which means that one of these Noids summoned off the feast is going to get banished, and we're really seeing how that affects the outcome of this game. On the plus side, this is a continuous spell or trap effect. So when it activates, you can negate it with a Anunku and banish it. So Sino might unknowingly play into that. But still, the fact that it even hit the board successfully, we're really seeing how holding this Void Feast like made Wuhtrain suffer. And it looks like I was wrong about this being a Decatron, but it may yet be one of the big boys. On the other hand, he can oh shoot, the copy effect. Actually, never mind. I was gonna say Link Kuriboh has a graveyard effect where you can sack a Decatron. Well, I guess it still works. You can sack a Decatron to protect the other Decatron from being run over. You have to chain the Link Kuriboh to Decatron send effect. He could do that if one of these is an in-hand big Noid. And it looks like he is thinking about that because Link Kuriboh has to be on the field before the attack is declared to successfully use its effect. But that would turn off this fully armed because it has to destroy a monster by battle, which is clearly inferior to the better Infernoid Cinosrepus, OPOP. But I don't agree with that. I believe that you can't just like go to battle phase and attack directly. Your opponent gets to choose to act something at start of battle phase, but this is up to them to resolve. So yeah, whatever. We'll see. That would be a disappointing way for a game to end, but and this is not an over game by any stretch of the word. So yeah, so Wuhtrain did the play that I suggested, but because the attack was already declared, he can't use the negate. He's just using it to make sure that he gets at least a couple names in grave. Yeah. Though I would, I still don't feel the best about that interaction. I would think that, okay, so he sent a Tondel and Piatti, which makes me think that this is probably one of the big, like Decatron, or not Decatron, Devyati or Anunku, because either one would clear out this tough. Oh shoot, what was that? Okay, so this Decatron is a Piatti, I guess. He just wanted one that has a quick effect banish to hit the quick fix, I think. So that's a little rough because he already has the Yoshi Woshi, the ghost girl on top from the tough. We'll see what Sino chooses to banish here, though. There's like a full board of options. I'm fairly certain that this in-hand card is Anunku or Devyati because otherwise it would have been sent. And yeah, even though had it been sent, it wouldn't have had enough names unless the last in-hand card was also an Infernoid, like because presumably the tough can banish the Sajet by hitting over it and then banish the copied Decatron. This activates in the damage step, so you can't chain the Decatron's banish from grave effect that it's copying from Piatti. So we'll see. At the very least, leaving up these two Link monsters means that Wuhtrain can fire off a Nightmare Serb on this main deck special, or this main monster zone special summoned Tough, and that might be enough. Especially if this card is an Anunku or a Debyati. Or you can just do that. Yeah, I suppose. It's slightly bigger than the Serb, and still is just a one-card solution to the Tough. Or like a one-link summon solution to the Tough, and doesn't leave it in grave for any other premature burial shenanigans. But we'll see if this last back row is anything live. And then we'll see if these cards are anything live. But this is good. This is how you do it. You wait and ask if your opponent has a response to the summon, just like you ask if your opponent has a response to a phase change. That's like good plays. That's how you do it. It's fair. And now you can activate the effect and pay the cost and a Scarm off the top. So that is one of the not too shabby costs to have to pay. And it worked. Oof. Yeah, okay, because the fully armed actually has a float effect. When this is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can summon a super agent. So had he gone for the Serb and popped the Tough, it would have triggered fully armed's graveyard effect. But oh, and there's the Torrential. This is a fairly nice bait. You can chain the Atondal effect and hit the quick fix here. So this is still a fairly dire situation for Cino because this was a torrential as opposed to effect negation. Because if it were like a breakthrough or whatever, that would have been pretty killer. But I think the pendulum has swung back because this Scarm can search a tour guide and it's fairly even again. And Cino does not have a setup grave and only has one card in hand, and that poor quick fix is rip. So, interesting game, back and forth. Let's see what the chat's saying. Buttery, say penis on the VOD, Venice. Okay, there we go. I did it. I hope you're happy. I'm not gonna sing, though. Treetop has heard me sing. He did it for a video or something. It was going to be like a podcast intro. He wanted all of us to sing the GX intro. And I was like, oh, fine. And so I sent it along. And then it turns out that Prawn and Punk were so big babies that they didn't even agree to do it. And so we never used it. Tree did, though. Props for that. He sang too. So there's a nice MP3 or whatever the file format is of us singing a duet. But anyways, you don't need to hear about my singing chops. Back to the game. You can see Cino's got that 1,000 blades again, but as of right now, it's basically a 1300 vanilla level 4. And even though it can be used to like stall for a little bit, the game is simplified enough that Wuhtrain doesn't need to like he can like play in a way that never leaves a situation for the 1,000 blades to resolve without Cino dying anyways, or like, yeah. It's like that was one of the options last game that we saw when facing down the 1,000 blades with the Atondal and the Cinosrepus. It's like good, but it's not actually like capable of chump blocking when your opponent can play around it. Like, it's very telegraphed, which is part of what makes it an interesting card. Speaking of interesting, it's very interesting that he's playing Master King and Wee Witch's Apprentice, because it used to be Master King was the go-to tour guide Sangan play target, but Witch's Apprentice is just better. But I suppose playing both when you have extra deck space is fine. Now he can just hit over that for 700, and getting the Curry Bandit helps set up further because there is one Infernoid in here, one of the big ones too. So we'll see if Cino managed to, and do 1,000, and if Sino uses the 1,000 blades, he can then swing over it with the Master King, and if he doesn't have to attack with the Master King. So it slows down the game, but it's interesting because it makes that a choice. Like, do I need to get this damage in soon enough that it is worth, like, leaving my opponent with a level 4 monster going into their turn when I know that they could draw a level 4 like this Ghost Bird? That's pretty funny though. Ghost Bird's like, I don't like it. I don't think it's very good. But normal summoning a 2300 beater is like sometimes what you need. On the other hand, special summoning a Photon Thrasher would have also forced the Torrential in that situation. That's like interesting though. Torrential's such a good card to have to use when your opponent normal summons something for a -1. But yeah, no attack because of that 1,000 blades. Ooh, these mills! Getting a... There you go. He didn't whiff. And he got one Noid Engrave. So it wasn't great, but he can add back a Fiend Griefing, and that's basically called by the grave, except you also can mill a Noid. So he can use it to shuffle if the opponent has any sort of grave setup, spirally shenanigans. And it looks like he does not. This is sort of a rough situation with no plays on either side. Though soon enough, the Etondal only needs 2 names. I think Wuhtrain is like slightly advantaged here because he has the setup to put this 2800 beater on board and has multiple traps, where Sino is like, they aren't traps or something because he's not using them. The Gofu's a good card though. This could be rough. The Gofu's like even more powerful in these low advantage situations where you can use the like the Phoenix play, and your opponent is less likely to just negate you somewhere along the way. Like, actually getting that Phoenix play to stick is a disgusting plus. So if one of these cards is dead, he's not going to care about having to pitch it. Though, that's interesting. I guess, yeah, he wants to prevent the draw. Whoa, oh, wait, never mind. I was like, why would he pitch that? But then I realized he already milled a Devyati, which means that unless he's playing 2, which he's not, it doesn't actually have legal target. It's because it can only summon Tierra, which has the mandatory like materials of Devyati and Anunku, and then as many Noids as you want to send. So yeah, Imagination is really good, but also really rough when you don't have targets for it. Looks like Sino's still going for this. I'm not sure how I'd feel about doing that play because you know that one of these is a Fiend Griefing, which can just be chained. Yeah. Thinking about whether or not to use the effect. Summoning it's fine. Unless you had like a better link to, like Witchling would have been better in this situation. 2 dark monsters, and it would float back into the Gofu. But we'll see. No effect. So I guess he is trying to hold on to these for some sort of other play, or he just doesn't want to risk his opponent firing off something that he would have fired off anyways. Though leaving it up means that now this Paleo is set up in grave, so that means you can flip the griefing, whichever one it is, and then get the Paleo, and that's like pretty scary setup. So there's the griefing. 1,000 blades probably. None of these have graveyard effects other than it. And then Skarm's already engraved, so I'm guessing just like a weenie Infernoid, and then you can summon the Antra. And yep, there's the Paleo. And 28, 19, so that is 928 and 12, which is a lot of damage. So then all of a sudden this no clock at all has turned into a fast clock for Wuhtrain. Yep, so he sent one of the ones that he wanted to draw least, and now he'll just summon the Etondal. I can do math. And we'll see. Maybe one of these cards that Cino's been holding is like a DD Crow, because that's definitely something one would side in a matchup like this, but also would be a card that you held instead of pitching with the Phoenix, and that you couldn't make plays with for the past 2 turns. However, it looks like no, or at least he didn't use it right if it was, because Infernoids are inherent summons, so you have to fire that bad boy off ASAP. But yeah, so this double attack is ouch. And then 1200. So this is still a really close game, but if either of these are real back row, then I think that Wuhtrain might have it on lock, because there's just not enough that you can do from an empty board on 3 cards through like a piece of disruption. Ooh, so he was holding on to a cosmic. That's sort of interesting. I guess he wanted to wait for Wuhtrain to use the Fiend Griefing instead of pitching the cosmic with the Phoenix, because even though that 1,000 life points may end up mattering, making sure that you hit something that's not just chainable that you know about is probably better. So just say which one it's closer to. Is it the Dinomicious one, or is it the Atondal one? There you go. Closest to your deck. So it is the Atondal one, I think. Oof. That was a good hit. So this other one also has to be some... Oh my god! This other one also has to be... Oh, it was something real. Either one of those would have prevented this play, to a certain degree at least. If he was targeting the Atondal, though, he could have just changed the Banish, but that didn't actually matter. So, last card was 1-for-1, and no monsters to go with it. Big rip, but there's the DD Crow I said he might be siding. Yeah, so that was a good match. Really back and forth for how overwhelming that it seemed like it was going to be when Wuhtrain resolved the feast, but I think it could have been a little bit more straightforward had he just fired it off in a situation where he could have used the negates instead of like firing it off and then having his board banished by this fully armed. Anyways, thank you to everyone for joining me. This was a good feature match, and yeah, so I'll see you guys for the next one.